Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexandre Tabbakh. I'm CEO and co-founder at Unikeys, a Hong Kong-based company that empowers people, whether they are individual, enterprises, or merchants, to feel comfortable interacting within blockchain ecosystems. So the core foundation of Unikeys, as you can see on the screen, is a smart hardware wallet card that relies on a biometric authentication process. The two main other backbones of the projects are a merchant ecosystem that enables merchants to accept direct crypto payments from a hardware wallet that is transportable. I will talk about it a bit later. And the other part of the whole concept is to also introduce the solutions for scalability issues. So we also work on payment channels and try to implement a very robust workflow for merchants to receive payment from payment channels. If we just take a step back and look at the crypto space right now, we have been talking a lot this last day about ICOs, blockchain regulation, etc. I think that one thing that is sure nowadays in the crypto space is that everybody recognizes the disruptive and game-changing power of blockchain, whether it's regulators, governments, enterprises, and banks. So this is something pretty good. But there's still a lot of challenges that we, blockchain entrepreneur and fintech entrepreneur, need to handle. Two of them are security and user experience. I think those two comes together. Very few people that started to buy cryptocurrencies in 2017 really understand what's a public key, private key, how to handle those keys, how to store them, hot wallets, cold wallets. So it's pretty confusing. So in terms of UX and security, there is a lot to be done. As you know, quite a few centralized exchanges got hacked these last weeks, months, and year. It's not something new. It will happen again, probably. So we need to find solutions to make sure that people understand what are cryptocurrencies, how to use them, and where they should store them. One more topic, regulation and best practices. I think that as blockchain entrepreneurs, we need not to wait for regulators to regulate us, but we need to try to better self-regulate ourselves. So it's easy to say, but I think that it's something doable if we manage to build a governance that is clear towards whether our token holders, our community, or our customers, to make sure that we know who's responsible in case of issues, and that transparency is key in the project. One last thing I mentioned is scalability. A lot of debates around scalability and the fact that blockchain might be sometimes too congestion, too expensive, too slow. So this is something that is moving very fast in the space today, and I'm gonna talk about it as well. So as you all know or all have heard about, there are a few hacks, very big, that occurred these last years. One of them, and the first one that was quite significant, was the Mt. Gox hack in Tokyo, in Japan. And that's a problem. I mean, if you centralize private keys, if you centralize the storage of those keys into one place, one database, one cloud ecosystem, etc., you create a huge target for thieves and hackers. But it's not only about centralizing data or centralizing private keys, it's also about governance again. Those centralized exchanges that pop up every week, every day probably, do not have proper governance most of the time. Certain regulators started to try regulating that, especially in Japan or even in UK, but it's still very nascent. So in that space, as you can see here, there's a lot to be done. And there is a trend that is very important in the space, that is to store cryptocurrencies in hardware wallets. So as you must have in your pockets or maybe at home, actually, how many people hold a hardware wallet here? Okay, quite a few. You must be having a Ledger, Trezor, KeepKey, I think. And they are very reliable. I have some myself, by the way. And they're good because they allow you to isolate your private keys from the web and to store your private keys in what we call cold wallets. However, there is a lot we can do to improve that and to make sure that everybody understands those hardware wallets, because the user experience is still to be improved. When it comes to PIN code, when it comes to clicking on the buttons and USB and cable, etc., I think that we can do better to make Mr. and Mrs. Everyone understand more about hardware wallets. So this is the Yuki card, our hardware wallet, that is combining a biometric sensor that allows you to record up to 8 fingerprints, an EMV chip, an NFC Bluetooth feature as well is embedded into the card. And there is a battery. You can use the card 400 times before having to recharge it for 2 hours. The card is rechargeable with a process called harvesting induction. We have the card. It is right here. And we have a working product as well that I can show you right after the talk. That is an Ethereum wallet that communicates between the card and the smartphone. Rethinking hardware wallets, it's a very strong challenge that we are taking on at Unikeys, but we believe it's possible. And by rethinking hardware wallets with our card, we also rethink the cards in general. We're all holding credit cards in our pocket that have absolutely no strong authentication process on it or biometric sensors. You guys can be hacked, and myself as well, in a metro by somebody having an Android app and a small NFC tag. So it's pretty dangerous. And introducing 3FA, three-factor authentication, can allow us to rely on something that we have, something that we know, is something that we are. Those are the features of the card. The card is patented. I'd be happy to share with you more documents. They're all online. And I'd also be happy to show you the card later on. One other important aspect is that once we have managed to make this card transportable, we need to make sure that merchant can accept it. So in order to do that, we are building a merchant app connected to a reader that enable merchants to accept crypto payments from the card and directly from a hardware wallet. This framework is very important. And in order to do that, we, Unikeys as payment provider, take the risks of volatility and latency in exchange of transaction fees around 0.5 to 0.75%. This is a solution that is very convenient for merchants, but there is another topic that is also very important for us. It's called payment channels. So right now on the Ethereum network, you might be able to do around 20 transactions per second. Visa can do 2,000 transactions per second. And if the entire world will be making 1 transaction every day, we would need to have 90,000 transactions per second happening. That's not doable with the current infrastructure that we are all using with blockchains. So there are 2 ways. Either we increase the block size, or we create an off-chain layer. The one at Unikeys that is quite, for us, relevant is the second option by creating this off-chain layer called payment channel. So we are working right now on a working product that will be delivered in August, and that allow a consumer and merchants to open a channel and perform multiple cryptocurrency transactions without having to record those transactions on the blockchain. We will present it at the end of the summer, and it's a big part of our roadmap as well. Speaking of ecosystems, merchants, fees, etc., what we do at Unikeys is that we issue a token that is useful for 3 different aspects and important for us. First of all, payments. We enable our users to buy the cards with the token and to buy the merchant packages. We also allow them to pay the transaction fees with our token. And the last aspect that is pretty important is to incentivize consumers to use these cards, because with the current cards available on the market, whether they are Visa card or crypto card using the Visa network, there are cashback solutions. So we need to make sure that we also incentivize users to join our network. So I think that my time is limited. So this is the roadmap. We have a working Ethereum wallet that I can show you after the talk. I'd be happy to show you. We have a manufacturing process that is in line in France. We're based in Hong Kong. And we are going to deliver at the beginning of 2019 the second version of our card with the secure element embedded into it. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
We'll have time for some questions. There's one come up here. Problems with Revolut's, is this for you? Yes. Problems with Revolut's crypto app is that the fees are often much larger than they claim due to volatility. Is 0.75 transaction fee the max for Unikey?
That's the max. And why the fees are so low is because we have a very strong emphasis on payment channels. And we are not just believing that payment channels will be implemented soon. We are working on it, and we are going to deliver something by September. So we really believe that off-chain layers will be implemented by next year. And we are heavily working on it with teams backed by Ethereum Foundation for their work on payment and state channels.
Any questions from the floor? We've got a mic. One down here.
It might be a silly question, but I mean, sorry about the question. So you are talking about off-chain verification?
Off-chain, oh, okay. So right now, most of the transactions, when you make a crypto transaction, it happens on-chain. So I send you a Bitcoin, we wait for 5 to 10 minutes, it's recorded on the blockchain, distributed. With payment channels infrastructures, instead of recording all those transactions on the blockchain and paying fees and waiting, we are going to open a channel by making one transaction on the blockchain, and all the other transactions between you and I will happen off-chain, so that they are instant and they don't require you to pay fees, basically. It's one of the solutions to decongestion the blockchain and make it usable mainstream, I would say.
Okay, let's have a big round of applause for Alexandre from Unikeys. Thank you very much.